What's up, everybody? Welcome back to One More Guitar. Thank you for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like the video. It really does help the video get promoted. Also, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I always forget to introduce myself too. My name's Kyle, by the way, for those of you who may have been watching for months and have no idea what my name is. Sorry about that. Anyway, what I want to do today is I want to continue on with the affordable Gibson versus the expensive Epiphone research. So I wanted to try to compare this 1959 Epiphone Les Paul with a Gibson Les Paul Tribute. But the state of the world has made that a challenge for me. I actually found a friend that had one, but he's using this time to refinish it and like completely change all of the electronics and stuff. So it really wasn't a good comparison. I called Guitar Center to see if I could rent one, and they laughed at me and said not during a pandemic, which, okay, that's fair. I found that the shop in my old hometown actually had one, and they have practice rooms. I figured I could take my gear, just go over there and shoot the video, and the week I was going to go, they ended up selling the guitar. So I've done the next best thing here. I've gone to a guitar shop and just played the guitar and taken a little footage, and I'll try to use that and compare it to this Epiphone the best I can. I know it's not the best comparison, but what I really wanted to do was try one of the latest Tribute models. In the last video, I showed you the SG over here that's very similar spec to the current Tributes. But that guitar is from 2005, and I really wanted to try something that was in the current line to make sure that the things I was saying are still relevant, right? So I do think it was still valid, and I'll do the best I can to compare this to the Epiphone 59 and just see what we can get out of this. So let's get going. Alright, I want to take a quick look at the specs of these guitars side by side. We've got the Gibson on the left and the Epiphone on the right. Let's just check out the differences and the similarities between the two. Alright, so the first thing we'll notice is that the Gibson has weight relief where the Epiphone does not. The Epiphone has a AAA flame maple veneer, whereas the Gibson has a full maple cap. The Epiphone also has a full maple cap, it just has the veneer on top of it. The finish is satin lacquer on the Gibson, where it's just this aged gloss on the Epiphone. The neck material is maple on the Gibson, where it is mahogany on the Epiphone. I was kind of surprised by that. Both of them have a rounded profile. The Epiphone's called the Rounded C. Both guitars have a 12-inch radius, and the fretboard material is rosewood on the Gibson and Indian laurel on the Epiphone. Both guitars have trapezoid inlays, but the Gibson has acrylic inlays where the Epiphone has perloid. They both have 22 medium jumbo frets. They both have Graphtec nuts. They have very similar bridge and tailpiece, although you'll see the Gibson is branded Nashville, whereas the Epiphone is branded Locktone. They both have vintage style tuners, vintage deluxe tuners. The Gibson has a 490R in the neck and a 490T in the bridge, whereas the Epiphone has the Burstbucker 2 in the neck and the Burstbucker 3 in the bridge. Go ahead and weigh this one. It's about 8.5 pounds. So what I want to do now is I want to take the footage that I shot at the store, and I'm going to try to play it against this guitar. But I know that that environment was completely different than this one, a different amp even. So I'm going to still use that footage, but then I'm also going to use the SG I did in the last video that has the 490 pickups. So I'll put them all back to back so you can hear a comparison of what it sounded like in the Les Paul, what it sounds like in the SG. So those should be very similar, just hopefully through the same amp so we can do a good comparison. And then I'll play these Burstbucker pickups and we'll put them back to back and just kind of get an idea of how these sound versus the 490s. So let's check that out. Alright, let's take a look at this real quick. Now, you can see the satin finish and the grain on the maple cap, and I think it looks really good. Everything else is pretty typical, knobs, switch, pickups, all that. I think the fretboard looks pretty good. It's a little dry, but I think the rosewood looks good on it. Take a quick look at the back. I think the grain looks good, even though there's a little buckle rash there. But I think it stands out really well and it looks nice. The neck doesn't have as much grain in it, but it feels good. The profile is very similar to the 59, but I say that the fret edges are really sharp on this thing. And the guy who worked there handed me the guitar, he apologized and said it was the worst frets he'd ever seen on a Tribute. But other than that, I enjoyed it. Alright, so now I'm going to check out this Epiphone 1959 Les Paul Standard. First I'm just going to talk about how it feels in my hands kind of compared to the last one we just looked at. The first thing I noticed when I played that guitar and while playing this one again is that neck profile is almost identical to this. So if you're looking for the 59 neck profile, look no further than the Tribute. I mean, it was dead on to this, so that's pretty cool. Another thing I'll talk about looking at this is I can see that the wood grain is a lot tighter on this. It doesn't stand out very much. It's very smooth, very clean looking guitar. You know, I guess that's a preference too, but I think most people do prefer, you know, the wood grain to stand out and show off the guitar a little bit. So you're not going to get a lot of that with this, but you know, that's probably part of the sacrifice with the price. It's still good quality wood, right? It's just doesn't look as fancy. I'll say the neck itself, the finish on the neck feels better on this one to me than it did on the Tribute. It feels really smooth. It's nice having the binding on here. So I'll say that, you know, I think I prefer this neck to that neck for sure, just because of the way the finish is and the way it feels and the binding. As far as the nut goes, didn't have any issues with that guitar or with this guitar. I've had this one for a while now. I haven't had any problems with that. The tuners seemed about the same to me, really. I mean, not much to say there. The switch and the knobs and stuff like that, again, very similar. These are all USA parts too, so I think this switch is actually quieter than the one on the Tribute. All right, the next thing I'll talk about on this one is the fret ends compared to the Tribute. Maybe that was, you know, a particularly bad case, but those fret ends on that Tribute were super sharp. So much so that the guy at the store apologized to me when he handed me the guitar. So, you know, those were really bad. But I have to say that my experience with that SG is the exact same. Those frets are super sharp. As far as this one goes, there's not really any problems. There's a little bit of a catch right here. But other than that, the rest of the frets are fine. And this is really not bad. It's just, I can notice it sometimes. I may have to get a file out and fix that. But for the most part, the frets are in really good shape. I would definitely say that's better than on the Tribute. What else? We'll talk about this veneer. I think this guitar looks good. You know, if you just kind of hold it back from the camera, shine it in the light, it looks good. Comparing it to the real top of the Tribute, there's something that looks fake about it, you know? I mean, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad at all. It actually looks kind of good. It just doesn't look as good as the real top on the Gibson. All right, so I'm just going to play it a little bit, try to get a feel for it and talk about it. Never give me a wah. All right, so I really like the way these pickups sound. And I think that, again, that's going to come down to your preference, right? But I do love these pickups. So playing this next to that other one, I'll say I prefer the way these sound just already. I mean, they have a real nice, clean sound to them. And I'm sure there's a ton of videos out there about, you know, the 490 series versus Bushbuckers or the 57s or whatever. So you can go check those out, you know, if you want to try to figure out which pickups are right for you. But for my ear, I really like these. I can't really quantify that other than my ears like it. So I do prefer these pickups for sure. I think the guitar sounds great too. Alright, so I tried to do the tissue test with this one in the store without being too obvious. So I didn't show the tissue to the camera, but like I said, the guy said this was the worst frets he'd ever seen, and it tore that tissue up, and they were pretty bad. When I handed it back to him, he said he was going to have to get somebody to try to fix it because he would never sell it otherwise. It's only fair to do it with this one too, right? So let's check it out. Oh, see that? There's a little catch right there. Hold on. Right. It's not bad, but there's a catch right in here. Don't mind this, that was me holding it. But right here in the middle, I don't know if you can tell or not. Probably not, but there's a little bit of dragging marks here, but it's not ripped in any way. So the fretwork on here is definitely better than the one that I saw in the store. All right, so what are my final thoughts after comparing these two guitars? Well, there were a lot of things that were very similar. I didn't have any problems with the tuners or the nut or, the bridge or anything like that. So, I won't mention those things. I think that they were very comparable. The difference between the metal and the Epiphone stuff versus the Gibson. But other than that, you kind of know what you're getting there, and I didn't have any problems with any of that stuff. The things I will mention that were either, a surprise to me or differences that I saw, just things that stand out to me, are one, the neck profile. I was completely shocked that the neck profile was pretty much the same on both of those. So if that's one thing you're getting the Epiphone 59 for, I'd say that you can still get that in the Gibson Tribute. All right, the next thing I'll talk about are the frets. You saw them in the Les Paul Tribute that the frets were just in way worse condition. Even the guy at the store apologized for it and said that he was going to try to get somebody to fix it. And the same was kind of true on my SG. The frets just weren't that great on it. They were really sharp. The 59 had one or two sharp frets, but they weren't sharp enough to cut the tissue. So I definitely think the fretwork on the Epiphone is better in that price range. All right, I have to jump in here and say something real quick. If you've been watching the series, you may have noticed that I didn't post this back to back with the other ones. And the reason I didn't do that is because I had the opportunity to go to Nashville and play some more tributes to see what the situation was with the frets. So I wanted to tell you about that. I tried 3 different tributes when I was in Nashville, and none of them had nearly the fret issues that I had on my SG or on the tribute I tried here in town. So I just wanted to mention that you're not always going to have bad fret problems, but I think the possibility is there. So that's something that if you can get your hands on the guitar, it would be very beneficial to you. The other thing I wanted to add on here is that I forgot to do the thing like I did last time, saying which guitar I picked. They're both really good guitars in my opinion. I don't think that I would pick one over the other for anything other than preferences. Those 490 pickups have impressed me, and they sound pretty good, and they have their own characteristics, so I could totally see somebody wanting those. On the other hand, I think that the Epiphone sounds really good with the burst buckers in them. So it comes down to, do you want binding? Do you mind the veneer? Do you want the Gibson name? Stuff like that. But I think both of those guitars are fantastic. Compared to the SG, I definitely had some reservations about that one, but that Les Paul Tribute played great. I really enjoyed it a lot. So I just wanted to mention those things. I don't think I could pick one or the other. I could. I did. I picked this one. But again, it's just because I liked those pickups, and I wanted the, some of the 59 specs. But other than that, it's, again, down to your preference. So I just wanted to add these things in just to kind of give you my opinion and to let you know that I did try some other tributes just to make sure that it wasn't on all of them. If that was the case, I think you'd hear about it a lot more. So there are tributes out there that have perfectly fine fretwork. As far as weight goes, I'll say they were very similar. Again, I apologize that I couldn't get the guitar back to my house so I could weigh it. I think that the Epiphone is probably just a little bit heavier, but they were very similar. All right, the next thing I'll talk about is just the way the guitar looks. I think even with this fancy veneer here, the Gibson Tribute still looked better. The real wood just looked better. Like I said earlier, the veneer is really not that important to me. But I do think that the Gibsons look better. So something to note. All right, and the last thing, even though I like the way that the 59 neck felt in my hand, and I'm not talking about the profile, I'm talking about the finish, and the binding and all of that, I really did like that better. Overall, I think that the Gibson felt better in my hands. I don't really know how to describe that, but it just felt better. It could come down to construction or the quality of the materials, but it just, you know, it felt like a real nice guitar in my hands. That's what I'm saying. All right, I think that's going to do it for today. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these two guitars. In the next video, I'll review my entire experience with this and give you my final thoughts on affordable Gibson versus expensive Epiphone. So hope to see you next time. Till then, take it easy and keep playing.